Hey, Bob, what are we doing today?
Well, Kevin, we have a special guest marching all the way from Poland, and we are going to talk about what it takes to get into this gig of being a computer programmer, developer, software engineer, yada, yada, yada. Is it books? Is it education formally, or is it just School of Hard Knocks? So with that, immediately beneath me in the video that you all can't see is Kevin. Say hey, Kevin.
Hey, Kevin.
And we have Marcin. Say hey, Marcin.
Hey.
All right. Let me fade this back.
All right. So, Marcin, we are, I think, well, we're different time zones. So it's 2:30 in the afternoon for you. It's 8:30 in the morning for me. And Bob, it's 7:30 in the morning there. And so I am definitely only on the second cup of coffee only, right? But it's early for me. Bob, are you awake yet?
I am partially through my first cup of coffee, so no, I'm not awake. Marcin, we know that you're quite the coffee fan. What's your coffee count so far today?
I think that I drank at 3 of them since now, and now I'm filling myself with water. But yeah, this is a middle of the day for me, and I didn't know if I should say good morning or good afternoon for you. But yeah, that's me.
All right, so I have a burning question before we get into our regular topic of the day. For those listeners who do not know, Marcin is a co-host of a weekly web series on YouTube, and it's called Umbra Coffee. And a couple weeks ago, they were in Denmark, or I guess a few weeks ago now, and they did a live format with a live studio audience. So talk to us a little bit about that and what it was like coming back and not doing it with a live studio audience.
Yeah, we really felt like stars there because for the first time we had an audience, and it's interesting for someone who is doing live streams on YouTube because I usually did it from my home when I feel comfortable and safe, and there were people and they were listening, they were watching live, and you were also participating on this show. It was very interesting. I felt really great. Umbraco, which was the organizer of the whole conference, did a great job preparing the whole venue for our purposes. We had a sofa, we had tables, mugs, and everything else, which just helped us to feel almost like at home. And yeah, definitely we want to do more of it. And as a little sneak peek, probably we'll be doing it on many more festivals this year and many more events, Umbraco related this time.
So now you won't probably be at US Fest though, because that's very close to Poland, right?
Never say never.
Oh.
Yep, I'm still thinking about it, and as I know that the submissions for speakers are closing very soon, I'm really tempted to do it, and especially that it's in Chicago where I have a family. So for me, it might be a really nice combination of both. So travel and pleasure and business. So like I said, never say never. I can't promise nothing, but I'm really considering it. So yeah, maybe.
So what was that first episode like after Code Garden, where it was back to you at home, Callum in the office? How was that?
Oh, I think that the first week after the Code Garden is always sad. no matter if you are running a YouTube show or not, it's always sad. So it was different. We were all getting back to the normal routine, normal life, normal discipline. So yeah, I think that we were just missing everything what happened there, and started counting down to the next year.
Awesome.
Well, I loved watching the show live from Code Garden. It seems like that format suits you both very well, and it's got to be a dream come true to have an off-camera producer and not have to worry about that while providing content.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I think that this is exactly why we want to do it. We want to just bring it all closer for people who cannot attend specific events or cannot follow everything what's happening on socials and around the product, which Umbraco is. And yeah, we really feel great doing it. So we'll be definitely continuing.
Cool. Kevin,
right.
transition us into this main topic here.
All right. So, being a software or developer or engineer, by the way, there's like 15 terms in my mind that all kind of mean the same thing. Basically nerds making intellectual property and solving problems for themselves or for clients. So it's a bit of a daunting thing. So before I kind of did this mainstream, I was like always wondering, well, what does a programmer do? What does a software engineer do? What's the best way to learn? And for me, back in the mid 90s, showing my age, the answer was, well, Kevin, there's no internet. So if you were going to get into this thing, you were basically going to do financial programming or missile guidance systems for the military, not the internet. And so when I got into it, the only thing that was available to me was 4-year university, actually 2-year. They offered a 2-year degree where I went. And there was no such thing as lynda.com or Pluralsight. There were some books probably, sure, but I wasn't much of a book person back then.
And I'm sure they were page turners too.
I'm sure. There was no YouTube. There was maybe Encyclopedia Britannica was flirting with doing a CD-ROM video where you had to have like 30 videos or CDs for like A through B, or So that was the mid 90s for me, and times have changed so much so that because they didn't teach the internet, and the internet kind of blew up, or in a positive way, it grew up in the late 90s to become the mid 2000s to what it is today. Me, and I'm sure you too, Bob, and possibly you, Martin, that we had to teach ourselves, because there was, we were either done with school or there was just no materials available. So all of that as a preamble to somebody who in 2018 is making the plunge, whether they are young or whether they are 40 years old like me, and say, you know what, I'm tired of making widgets for the factory. I want to become whatever it is you do. I'll have what he's having or she's having. How do I do that? And so that is the premise of today's discussion. And Martin, I'm going to throw you out front and center and say, what's the answer?
Oh, wait, I have a quick question first, though. Yes. Radio show of hands. Kevin, you're traditionally trained. I'm saying, so you attended university to learn how to program. Yes?
Yes.
Martin, how about you? Did you go to school, university to learn how to program?
Yes. I got the master's degree on one of the universities here in Poland as well.
Ooh, okay. So only completely self-taught. My degree is in journalism, so
nice.
I'm a writer. Okay.
Yes, so I can provide you an answer, but there are more than one, definitely. I think that's the good point which you've mentioned is that the times are changing, and I am probably a little bit younger. So I was from the transition between a world without internet to the world with the internet, and I was mostly from the second part of it. But right now it's a lot different because internet is everywhere, and programmers are also everywhere. So it's not an easy answer. And I if I think about education and learning how to program, I always say, for everyone who is asking me about it, that no matter which path you will take, it's all up to you, and it's all requiring a lot of time additionally to become good at it. Because I finished studies. I can tell everyone that they might not have changed too much in my life, but I didn't learn too much programming during my studies, to be honest. I was a basketball player in academics team. I was partying a lot. I was working during my studies. So I was just studying actively various topics, and I was learning after studies. Basically, from the maybe third year of my studies, I was more working than studying, and learning how to program from my coworkers and friends. And then I've just decided to finish the studies and receive the degree because I wanted to please and I don't know, satisfy my family members mostly. And yeah, but I spent a lot of time after my studies to explore programming, explore different technologies. I've attended a lot of meetups. So if anyone is asking me right now which path should they take, I think that it doesn't matter. You just need to be determined, at least at the level which will push you to explore more and will cause you to wake up in the morning and be hungry of exploring more. Yeah, that's the entry point for the first answer, I think. Maybe Bob can add something else to this topic as a self-taught programmer.
Well, one thing that I'm jealous of a lot of, like, and you mentioned it too, you said learn much more outside of university than when inside. And I look at the environment that you're in where you're working, pretty closely day in and day out with other programmers. I don't necessarily have that luxury. Like, I have friends that do it. So like Kevin and I will connect a couple times throughout the week and we will do some kind of, pair programming, mostly him telling me that I did it all wrong and this is the way I should approach it. But, I see great value in that. And internship programs or, being able to be a junior developer within an organization with developers, I would see that as being like a huge boost to the education process for sure.
Yeah, I think that it becomes more common to see and meet programmers, and probably a couple of years back it wasn't so popular. The whole profession wasn't so popular. Lately, we've been even trying to compare programmers right now to doctors or even priests, because they were admired inside of the different communities. And right now, programmers are admired, or many people are curious how our profession looks like, why we are so needed. Because if anyone else right now is scrolling job offers, they can see 80 or 90% of them that they are relates to the IT profession, and all of the companies are looking for programmers, not only software developing companies, which is also interesting. And it all caused that the people started to think that maybe it's something for them, and I receive a lot of questions from my friends who are not inside of our branch, as I am trying to be very visible and sharing a lot of insights from our profession. They are asking me how to start, where to start, and that's why I also think that it's important for us as already programmers to share our experience, to also tell those people that it's not always perfect, because it's not only sitting in front of the computer and clicking random buttons on our keyboards, right? And this is what many people think about our profession.
Wait, so it's not?
Oh, sorry, I revealed the secret. Yeah, so it's not just a sitting job in the safe environment of your bedroom or something like that. It's a really hard profession, and I think that this is an important message for everyone who wants to start, that they just need to start first, no matter of the path chosen, and explore if it's something for them. And that's awesome that we have so many paths right now.
So if I could kind of just give a different perspective here. So I think we almost, it's going to sound crazy because when we hear computer programming, and it's even called computer science at the university, it's like this very analytical thing. And a lot of outsiders will look at this, especially my project managers and the owners will be like, oh, well, you're the analytical type. And yes, there's some of that. But I also think there's some qualities that you should probably have in order to kind of get into the biz, so to speak. And the number one is, for me, is problem solving. So I feel like, what do I do on a daily basis? I solve problems. And I actually trick my mind a bit by making it a game. I basically say, okay, this is like a Sudoku puzzle or a crossword puzzle. Basically, it's like, okay, here's where we're at. It doesn't work. Here's where we need to be. It needs to work. What is the in-between? Kevin, fill out the middle parts and make it work. And to me, I trick myself rather than feeling like it's a job. I feel like I'm playing a game on a daily basis. And I know that sounds really weird. So I think you need to be problem solver. You need to kind of like puzzles. You have to be okay with failure, because if you're worried that, well, what if I don't get it right, and you just totally wreck yourself internally, this may not be the job for you. Because full disclosure, early Kevin, I got it wrong most of the time. And now I've kind of gone to where I get it right about 80% of the time, but I'm still wrong about 20% of the time. And it's that 20% I got to fix over and over and over. And then I think you got to be a pattern person. And I don't mean software patterns. I mean, when you look at something or a problem, do you see natural loops? Do you see natural, decision points? So I think you need to start seeing patterns. You also have to accept that your next project will always be better than any previous project, because that's growth. It means you've learned, and your next one, well, at least it should be better. And I think naturally you should understand that when you look backwards at your old code, it'll feel like that old high school prom photo with the braces and the weird teeth and glasses. And you're like, oh my gosh, that was only 2 years ago, and that's what it looks like. But you got to be okay with that. And in 2 years, you're going to look back at today's code, and you're going to have that same thing. And then you kind of want to have the ability to use computer coding as fake employees. We're in the era of fake media news, but I like fake employees because I can tell a computer, hey, do this trivial task for me because I'm tired of doing it. And you know what? I'll have 10 of you, and you all do your trivial tasks, and you'll just be happy because you're just some automated bot of mine, and you're just going to do it. But that's how you have to be able to like self-delegate to your own code. Anyway, those are the qualities I think that a lot of people, if any of that sounds interesting, this might be the job for you.
Well, it's interesting because I kind of want to riff off something that you've both said. So Marcin kind of alluded to the fact that this job that we're in is really the job of the future, because everything is becoming more automated. Everything is being driven by some kind of set of instructional code that makes it all happen. And Kevin, you kind of alluded to this feeling of right now, and I'm putting words in your mouth, that maybe we're in the golden age of development. That like it is and Marcin even mentioned it, highly sought after, respected. But what's going to happen, taking those components of seeing patterns that you mentioned and, being able to fit in, but then you even mentioned the minions. There's going to be this whole tier of employment where you're really just making sure that that piece of equipment is actually responding to the instructional code that's made that device do a very specific task. So, I mean, first, I guess the question to throw up to both of you, do you feel like, can we confirm that we are kind of in this golden age, and perhaps it's going to get a little bit more less golden in the near future because of the dearth of mid-level and low-level development jobs that are going to be coming into the stream?
So I can provide an answer for this question, because I was lately preparing a talk for parents in our programming school for children, because I didn't mention, but we also running a programming school for children here in Poland. And I am responsible usually for educating parents why it's important to bring their children closer to what computer can do for them, rather than just consuming what's already created for their children and maybe for someone else. So I was gathering data about our profession, and we've been in the golden age since, I don't know, 80s. So everyone who was able to code, who was able to use computer in a way for what it was really created, was really required and needed. And it's still like this, but our profession evolved, our skills become different, our programming languages changed, and it's all changing constantly. And in the, I don't know, era of cloud solutions and all the automations moved outside of the code itself, the only requirement skill sets, the skill sets are changing, and the people and the problem solving, which Kevin mentioned, stays the same. So we are still solving problems, but we are using different tools and different methodologies. So if earlier we needed to write, I don't know, ton of the code to solve simple issue or problem, right now we should see that we need to use this and that to combine it together and to solve the same problem in a different way. And I think that's important, that we probably won't be replaced by machines soon, hopefully, still. But yeah, and still those skills and those soft skills around programming will be something which will stay in our portfolio and in our attitude to still stay in the branch and still be valuable for companies and teams in which we are in.
So to kind of play off Marcin there, so I think we go through eras, and each era is actually stands on the shoulders of the previous one and gets that much better. So if we go back in time to the early to mid 60s Cold War era, America versus Russia, we were in this little thing called the space race. And I was watching this documentary on, they had these big rockets with these big engines with this rocket propellant. And oh, by the way, we need some sort of computer to run all of this stuff, right? So I'd have to find the documentary again, but it was really great because it talked about they hired a bunch of software people who basically were the pioneers of software engineering at that time. And at that time, it was punch card era. So they would do their coding and then they would output them to a physical printer, which actually made punch cards. And if you made an error, you got, 2 boxes of paper because, it could have run away error. Or if you found, a little trivial error, you go fix it. And then they have to output the punch cards again. So I think it's safe to say we're all happy we don't do that anymore. And then in the 80s, when I started learning programming, BASIC, I had to put my own line numbers, and I had to make sure I spaced them out properly in case I want to insert something in between. Then when I realized I only spaced by 10, now I have that 11th statement. I got to kind of do this mass renumbering thing. Better than punch cards. But, then we moved to where we have this thing called networks where one computer can talk to another computer. And then this is right around, well, the internet's much older than me, but when I was in the university, we had email and something called Gopher protocol and, Netscape Navigator, which is way better than basic programming, but it introduced several new things such as JavaScript, JS script, VB script. Let's see, we got the Java plugins, remember those? And then we evolved to where we have Flash, and everyone's like, Flash. And then we're like, fast forward today, oh my God, Flash, no. Same thing with Java plugins. And now we have frameworks. We have, front-end frameworks. We have the .NET framework. We have Django. We have Ruby on Rails. We got a lot of cool things. And what I think is great is that independently, each silo of programming has kind of come to some conclusions that, we are all solving the same problems through different languages. And we call these patterns. That's why it's really great that software patterns really transcend languages and frameworks, because the problem remains the same no matter how you articulate it, in code and whatnot. So 100% agree. We are in an awesome era right now. And I would assume the next era will be even better as long as we don't create aware robots that kill all of us engineers. Then that would probably a downturn on the chart. Yeah, so there you go, Bob. That's my 2 cents on that.
I can add one more thought to the whole topic here, because I remember a story from one of my professors during my studies that they waited 2 weeks in a queue to compile their project, to compile their code, and right now we cannot face the disappointment of children in our school who are waiting 300 milliseconds to the results on their screen. And they are impatient, right, in this scenario. So machines also helped us a lot. And right now it's definitely easier to verify if our approach or if our ideas can be compiled into the projects, the programs, or the results, and to verify if it's something for us. And that's brought us back to the learning curve and learning program.
I will say there's one group of people who will totally disagree with us, and that's probably the finance industry, because they're still running AS400 COBOL servers. And if you take Stripe out of the equation, they're all looking at us going, guys, what's going, how do we get all the cool tools too? So if you ever worked in finance, and especially here in American banks, they're just old mainframey stuff, and it's still the main thing.
Yeah, and I heard that they've put the delays in their code to not expose that the financial methods are done so quickly, because people were not believing in the computer's power, and they just put the delays there to fake it. So,
I've heard that as well. They've slowed it down so that people believe that it was doing something. Those AS400 people, they're writing their own tickets right now, though. Like, if you are someone who can still maintain an AS400 system, you can go anywhere you want in the financial industry and get paid huge.
Yes. So I'm hoping the finance industry adopts JavaScript and C# one day. So when I'm 60, 70, 80 years old, I'm still catching a premium, because we've moved on to quantum computing and finance is still back in the old stack.
So, Marcin, you're teaching kids at the school. What kind of stuff are you teaching them? Are you guys using a Scratch type programming language and, kind of the executable blocks, chaining them together type deal? Is that what you're teaching them?
Yes, I'm not directly teaching them right now. We have a really amazing team in our school who is doing it right now. But yes, we are covering many age groups, basically. We are starting from children aged 5 and ending on 16 years old teenagers who are using different tools and different technologies. So for the younger kids, we are using, of course, Scratch, which is the most popular tool, which can be used also by adults, right, to teach them and learn how to program. We are using Kodu, which is a tool from Microsoft, which can be used also on the Xbox. We teach the children also the App Inventor. I don't know if you have heard about it. It's for the mobile applications. It's also from the MIT. And right now we are starting new programs which will be based on Roblox and Minecraft educational edition. So yeah, we are changing those tools and we are adapting to the new trends, and especially with those last two, so Minecraft and Roblox, we are trying to just take children, because they are already spending a lot of time playing Minecraft and Roblox, to spend this time for something more creative than just consuming content, maybe creating content, maybe creating their worlds and their visions inside of the games worlds. And yeah, of course, behind all of this, the knowledge is shared, and the principles of programming are also taught. And for those a little bit older, we are of course using the web technologies, so HTML, JavaScript, CSS, combined with some CMSs and our favorite Umbraco CMS as well. We are teaching them also the Unity engine for games. Also, this semester we are starting Unreal Engine as some kind of comparison to Unity, and we've done a course in Xamarin development for mobile applications, and I can't remember more, but there is a lot of more of them.
Can you remind me of the age group of these?
The first group is from 5 to 8. Second one is from 8 to 12, and third is from 13 to 16.
Okay, it wouldn't be the Bob and Kevin show without a little bit of controversy. So if you see a student with lots of talent, would you recommend they go into university to solidify their skills after secondary school, or would you say, you know what, let's see what the market's got for you, you've got talent, you'll be fine? What would you do, Marcin?
I think that I wouldn't make a direct suggestion, but what we are doing with students like that, we are taking them to the real companies during our courses, and we are showing them how it looks in the real life. Sometimes they are taken for the interns already, even being 15 or 16 years old. And we are just preparing them additional lessons. We have a small groups of children, so and a lot of trainers helping them to really not waste the potential. And I will be honest with you, there are some really bright minds in those people. I saw an 8-year-old boy who was making a C++ games already and creating stuff which I cannot even imagine creating. And I traveled across the whole Poland to see him in action because I didn't believe that something and someone like this exists. And yeah, we just took an approach because we are not standard school. We are not trying to equalize people inside of the group and just make them all the same. So we've just picking them up and helping them. As we are all programmers, we are all involved in some kind of business and companies here. We're just taking care of them, and maybe if it will shorten their path to the real life, let's say that, and if they will be still willing to take studies, I think that there is no perfect answer, because even if I probably wouldn't go to my studies for the second time right now with my mindset right now, I will probably didn't learn what I've learned during those studies, because as you've mentioned, Kevin, the problem solving, I was playing basketball, working and studying at the same time. It was a huge problem to combine it all. And I think that I've learned a lot of prioritization and and some other useful skills during this time, not only programming related.
So oftentimes people will ask me, about the biz, so to speak. And I'll tell them, I guess it's like the medical industry, healthcare, but I've never been in that. Whereas if I stop learning, I'm going to get run over from behind, because everyone who's continually learning is going to go way far ahead of me. So I wouldn't expect my doctor to stop learning, about new diseases, new techniques, procedures. I couldn't imagine, stopping learning, unless maybe I'm doing COBOL AS400 at the bank. But, it's a continual process. So you've got to constantly recognize that, what I know today, no matter how good I feel about it today, tomorrow it's going to be perishable. Tomorrow I'm going to know a little bit less, unless I keep re-upping my brain, keep filling my brain with new ideas and break down what I thought was true. And I have to challenge that. Like, for instance, Troy Hunt, the famous Troy Hunt, he had a tweet recently about how, hey guys, can you come up with examples of what used to be true is opposite true, such as password complexity, password length, should your password expire, it's very security related. So I'd like to, anyone trying to get into the biz, there's some bad news. If you don't like learning all the time, this may not be for you, because you constantly got to come back and learn and acknowledge that, dang it, there's one more thing I got to learn today. Dang it, there's two things I got to learn today.
I'll take that a step further. It's not just our biz. It's not just being a doctor. I mean, really, to take it outside of, your vocation in general, you should always have a hunger for knowledge, because the world is not standing still. It's always changing and it's always growing. So I think if you want to, and Marcin's a great example of this, if you want to grab life by the horns and, go on that ride that it's going to take you on, you got to be fluid. You got to be like water and fill that container. You got to always be willing to expand and change and grow. So I like that our industry has an emphasis on that. And I'm sure that's part of the reason why I'm drawn to it. But you can really almost stamp that into, your daily existence. Parenting, prime example.
So since our knowledge, what we need to learn changes, I posit to you both that our training and learning methods should also obviously equally change. So the old guard thinking how did Kevin have to do it? I had to go to university. I would propose to you that I think the university is kind of an outdated model. I know it's controversial. I have a degree, so maybe I'm saying this ivory tower. It worked out for me, and now you should do something different. But I almost think, like metalworking. So I live in small town America, where vocation is a big deal. Welding skills, factory, working at the forge or at the foundry, I guess is what you call it, the steel mill. So that industry is around here. There's not a lot of me around here. There's no software engineers just, hanging out. I have to probably travel at least 30 minutes to find the next person who knows what C# is. Because if I say C#, they'll say, oh, you mean like the musical note? No, I'm talking about programming language. So what I propose is should we take a more of a vocational approach where we do an apprenticeship rather than have junior developer, senior developer? I mean, I guess I am kind of proposing we take people under our wings that exhibit the qualities that we think you would need for this, and then just start feeding their hunger with. Here's how we do it. Here's not the only way, but here's a way that we do it. We are a shop that does this, and let me walk you through, everything, source control, how we organize our code, release cycles, the software development life cycle. And then that person moves up the chain, so to speak, and so on and so forth. And then they pay it back by teaching the apprentices and things like that. Is that more of a viable model? So more of a question. It's a positive and a question. Is that a better model for the future? Am I crazy? And is the university as important anymore? There you go. There's the bomb. Boom.
I can add my bomb to that as well, because in Poland, for example, to have something inside of the studies program, you need to submit it for the ministry 5 years earlier. So imagine if we want to teach people right now what AI is or what Roblox is, we need to submit it now, and it will be taught in 5 years, which is sad right now. Right, it cannot be done this way. So
sounds
that's
like
why
enterprise.
Yeah. So that's why maybe that's why they are asking where you see yourself in 5 years. But yeah, that's such true. That's why those technologies which are taught on the studies are sometimes outdated, maybe. This is probably the answer, because we need to have mentors, and they can be from studies, they can be from the internet. Right now we have information everywhere. We can find people who we are admire or who we are respecting, and just see their work, follow their work, and follow their path. Open source is yet another example how we can learn how to program. Right, I've learned the most from just seeing how it's done in different projects, or how other people are doing it, how to implement this and that, if I had an idea to do something on my own. Also what's important here in terms of education is that choosing the right company. And I think that the right company, not only by the business in which you are working in, but also in your friends' companies, so in your circles. If you are between people who are constantly learning and encouraging you to do the same, you are just pushed to do that, because you don't want to be just at the back or just stay behind them. Here as well, if you are working in a company who are doing a COBOL project for the 10 year in a row, and you have a 10 years in experience of copying and pasting something from one project to another, it's not a 10 years experience in programming, right? So it's very important to just find a right way. And I've lately seen that people were even bragging that they are working for 5-10 years in the IT industry, and at the end, even if I am working 10 years in the industry, I don't know half of something what other people are knowing, because they are doing it constantly. They're evolving, they're using new tools, new methodologies, new frameworks, and it's good to have a place or company which is supporting this type of learning process, because most of the companies we won't be lying, they are just expecting employees to deliver work which was sent to them, and they don't care about self-development of people inside of teams mostly. So if you are able to choose, and we are able to choose right now, we are in this golden age where we are needed. So we can choose usually where we are going to work if we have already developed enough skills or passed the the junior level, which is another probably topic of discussions, because it's hard to judge who is junior, who is not junior, where to put the line between junior and mid developer. But if we have skills, if we are confident enough to just jump into the team and be mentored by someone else who have time to mentor us, I think it's a time for us to just jump into jump into the companion of good people and follow their path to learn more and more every day, and not waste this time being a developer somewhere.
Before I weigh in, it's probably important for me to note that the views on the Bob and Kevin show are expressly the views of Bob and Kevin and their guest. And Bob's views are completely his own. Thank you. And disclaimer. So it's interesting that Marcin brought up the 5-year lag at the university level, and Kevin kind of with the posit of, is that education really a necessity right now? It's funny that you see that mentality replicated in some organizations as well. So like the university is technically could be 5 years behind the curve. There's tons of organizations out there that only hire the university degree, which means that they're basically hiring at a lag. And I don't know about in Poland, but university marketing in the States is giant. So my kids are 21, 19, and 17 right now. So basically for the past 7 years, I've been bombarded with college marketing material. And it is a rare occurrence that a college or university is sending information to my doorstep, to my children, about the importance of technology in the career of their future, whether it's education, medical, or traditional IT, which is basically taking over the world from a career standpoint. Not one mention of the role of a technology in their degree selection. And I find that very interesting. So, having been self-taught post-graduation, university gave me great experiences, much like, Marcin had referenced, that I learned to do a lot of things that were soft skills, but didn't really learn anything from my career. But I still don't see the universities pushing this importance of technology. And then when you tier that up to organizations that are just hiring based on university, I think that's where you end up with poorly designed or soft mentoring relationships as well, because in those organizations, they're not being pushed to learn new tool sets, stay on top of frameworks, improve process through the selections of those platforms. So, it's kind of like you do have to be very careful about the organization where you wind up, that, not everybody needs a progressive organization, but it's definitely more in line, I think, with this developer mentality where you're always learning, always growing, but you want to end up in a progressive organization where that's encouraged, where you have those mentoring relationships as well. So once again, Bob's thoughts are Bob's thoughts.
So here's what I heard, Bob, just say here's what the world is hearing. The university, 4 years, 2 of those years are soft skills. The other 2 are 5-year-old career things. In America,
but don't minimize the fact that even in those 2 years that are 5 years lagged, you're still learning some foundational and some soft skills.
Binary math hasn't changed in a while, ever, right? So, yeah, there's still 8 bits in a byte and 4 in a nibble. Anyway, so, but but that's a Wikipedia read over and the self quiz at the end too. In America, universities is big freaking business. It is money. Where you go to Europe and a lot of that stuff is part of your social welfare systems. So big difference there. So what I'm hearing though is if you want to learn the latest and greatest, the university is not for you. But if you want soft skills and a foundation, it is for you, but it comes at a premium in America. And in Europe, it comes at it's not free because it's still your time. It's still 4 years of possibly delaying entry into the market. I have, Bob and I talk about our kids all the time. I have a 17-year-old contemplating what he's going to do for university. And he's a cutting edge, artistic, doing great stuff. And I feel, honestly, if he goes to the university, he's going to get bored, and he's going to possibly regret it. Now it's still up to him, and it's he's got to pay for it. So there's that too. So
and he also might miss his moment. I mean,
exactly,
he could catch his rising star.
Exactly. So all right. So we beat down university quite a bit.
I want to add something to that, because I don't want to for us to be just understand that universities are bad, because it all depends. I really know developers here in Poland who are happy after their studies, and not from the perspective of just learning how to do many things at the same time. But there are some universities who are trying to skip the whole process and to do the right thing, even if the ministry or government is not helping them with that. So, for example, we had a topics which we can choose from the additional list, and we had additional study classes from those. So I've learned ASP.NET development during my studies, for example, and I've built my first e-commerce solution during my studies on the top of .NET framework, which wasn't part of my program. So there are some universities who are trying, at least, to do it the right way. But the answer here probably is that if we can learn the same amount of knowledge or even more, if we won't be attending university, and yes, we can learn more not attending studies. We can learn more during the studies. We can learn still, I don't know, when we are working as someone else, or as a journalist, or as a, I don't know, plumber even. I don't know if it's the same in States right now, but we have a huge boom of boot camps for people who are, I don't know, looking for a change, and some of the bootcamps here are promising that they will make a programmer from plumber directly. It's one of the slogans of one of the schools here, and yeah, this is yet another way you can attend bootcamp. If you are not able to study during the week, you can just go there for 6 weekends, I don't know, and you will learn some basics from the programming. You can do the same from YouTube, right? The knowledge is here, and I think that's the very important thing here, is that we just need to want to do it, and if we will have a self-discipline and maybe motivation to learn, it doesn't matter from where we will be getting this knowledge. If it will be a YouTube webinar, bootcamp, meetup, conference, or open source project, we can learn from all of them, and probably the outcome of it will be much more likely the same.
So like you, Marcin, I like to teach. The problem I'm having is I live in a 8,000 person community where it's basically agriculture driven, maybe some steel mill driven economy. And I've offered to do free classes locally, but I get no hits. Basically, I think either I'm stereotyping everyone locally likes their job, or B, doesn't want to change, or C, more likely, I can't get my message out. So what I'm actually trying to do is I'll be working down at the local Chamber of Commerce in a co-working space. And I'm hoping to use that as a pivot point to actually offer, hey, you want to change your career? I can help you. I am totally willing to mentor you or a group of people. And or even just try it before you buy it, because some people will get into here and as soon as they see code, they will run for the door. And some people will look at it and go, this is awesome. What can I do? Well, we can do this. We can do that. So I'm totally down with that. I would say for me, the biggest bang for the buck is pair programming and open source, because Tom Fulton, my boss, he'd introduced pair programming to me, and it was a totally foreign concept. And for the layperson listening, it's one computer and 2 developers. Yes, that's right. There's one keyboard, one mouse. No, we don't. One gets a keyboard, one gets mouse. It's you have a driver and you have a passenger, and you change it up.
Or for remote workers, one source code, 2 pair of eyes.
There you go. And it blew my mind that was even a thing. I thought it was like totally taboo that, wait, it seems like we're wasting time and effort here. Shouldn't we both be doing things independently and we'll get more done? Well, it turns out it's a force multiplier, so to speak, because you can start seeing the insight and the inner monologue of how the other person is solving problems, because that's what we do. We solve problems. And when you switch sides, they get to see yours, and the student can easily teach the teacher, and vice versa.
Don't underestimate the power of hearing your own inner monologue out loud. How far that advances you.
And you know what? When I talk to anyone, the term is called rubber ducking, because if you put a rubber duck down in front of you, you just talk the problem out. A lot of times you'll come to the solution. And so sometimes I have human rubber ducks where I don't need you to talk, Bob. I just need you to listen to me. And you know what? When I'm done with you, I'll say thanks, and you'll be like, "What'd I do?" I'll be like, "You did everything." And then,
that's why I think that's the very important here is to start from doing, really. So if we want to learn programming, let's just start building something. Let's imagine something what we want to build, or some problem which we want to solve using computer for that, and just do it and just share the experience. I had a real world experience here in my home, because my wife, who is a pharmacist, wanted to understand what I'm doing here in front of my computer, and she failed. She failed. And even if I probably would be the best teacher, it just wasn't for her. And it's nothing bad. She just didn't feel good with it. And I have other example, because one of my friends, who is a HR person in a huge IT corporation, by the way, but she didn't have anything in common with programming. She recruited a lot of programmers and started to think what they are doing, why they are receiving so huge salaries, and I'm doing what I'm doing here and helping them receive them. So she started to learn to code and shared her experience from the very beginning, with ton of the mistakes, ton of the problems shared with other people, and people just jumped in. We are all here kind of involved in open source, right? And that's why I think why open source is so important, because we are opening ourselves for the critique, and not only critique, but also for help. If someone will spot that I'm doing something wrong and he will report me that this is wrong, I suggest you to do this and that. Thank you very much. I'm not offended. I learned something right now without paying for that. And that's why I'm amazed right now by the popularity of live coding streams, for example. And I'm jumping from one to another sometimes to just see what those people are doing, how they are coding, how they are solving problems. And I can see the discussions there, and people are helping one to another, and they are just learning. All of them are learning, even if they are just looking what this guy or girl is doing. And as a final thought of this long sentence, I would say that find the issue first and problem, and try to solve it. That should be the probably initial point of your journey with learning how to program. And everything is there, right? You probably can admit everything is in the internet. So if you want to build an e-commerce solution, just type in Google how to build e-commerce solution. Pick one of the languages from the list on Wikipedia, and just add how to build e-commerce solution in Ruby on Rails. And you will find a ton of materials how to do it, and just follow the lessons. And I used lately, when I was preparing a program for our children, because I'm mostly responsible right now for the course materials for our students, I was preparing a program in Python. And I didn't know Python at all. And I fell in love with Python. And
it's pretty cool.
It's a very powerful language and very simple to learn. So if someone is hearing us right now and just thinking which language is good to start, I think Python is the best right now from those serious languages other than the blocks in drag and drop interfaces. And I've learned Python, and I fell in love with Python. And I think that this is I learned Python from online courses, basically. So they were checking if I'm writing something correctly. I just known what I want to build. And I just Googled, and I just solved the problem of me not knowing how to do it.
All right, a couple things. One, that was a long sentence. Two, I'm gonna say something tough, and then three, I'm gonna ask you an even tougher question. So the tough statement is I'm looking at three white guys the industry has a hard time with diversity. It's gender and it's race. So the tough question. So that's a tough statement. The tough question is how do we normalize that? And I'll fall on the sword a bit here. I have 2 daughters and 2 boys. And I don't know if this makes me sexist, but I look at my boys and go, "Hey guys, you want to be software engineers?" They both look at me and go, "No." But I don't ask that of my daughters yet. Now maybe because they're 3 and 5 or 3 and 6. But do I see myself asking if they want to be software engineers one day? And I need to make sure I do ask them, because maybe that is what they want to do. And I have these preconceived prejudices, that they don't want to do this. They want to do something else. But how do we change the stereotype? How do we get more women involved? And how do we get more diversity in our ranks?
Jesus, that is a tough question.
This is a topic for another episode, I think. But
definitely.
I had a lot of discussions about it, to be honest, inside of our teams and, of course, in our school as well. We've been, it will be a bad word to say competing, but there are some schools for children who are teaching only girls, for example, to just, I don't know, tailor it to this group of people and help them learn how to program maybe in more detailed way. But it doesn't feel like a problem here, to be honest. I know a lot of female software developers who are awesome and who are even better than the male representatives here, and they just need to. I think that the problem is that they just don't feel that they belong, and we as a 3 white guys here should probably just make them feel better inside of our groups. And I've been. I'm working from various places right now. I'm sitting in my bedroom, but I'm working from various offices, and I can see that the guys are really helpful right now for the girls. They are encouraging them to step out from the comfort zones and pushing them to do more, to become more visible. And right now in this era, it's not only about software development. We have so many software developers, male, female, that it's not only about software anymore. And we should step outside. And I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to become visible. I'm trying to share the experience, trying to share how our profession looks like. And I think that we should see more of those missed groups doing exactly the same. So they need to show their experience. They need to show their problems. It is visible. It is something what we can help solving, and we should just definitely do it.
Bob, I know you got thoughts.
Yeah, I have a pin in the table here. Shout out to Pete Duncanson for putting a pin in it. So you mentioned that it was an issue with our industry. I will once again argue that you need to expand several layers of the onion out. It's a problem with a global culture at this point. The diversity and the inclusiveness part. There are parts of the world that are doing a far better job with this, and I think Marcin, kind of alludes to that. If you're living in progressive parts of the world, they've been making strides. But if you just dial back even 5 years ago, think about how different it was 5 years ago versus today. I do think we're heading in the right direction. I like some of the tooling that we use as an industry when we are disconnected. So we have our Twitters and our Slacks and our other instant messaging platforms. And for the most part, those are colorblind, genderless, and you can't make any preconceives. It's just basically what you enter in text. That's who you are. And I think that has definitely helped. And I think if we learn to look at our other toolings and our other communication platforms with that same lack of identification, I think that should help. But yeah, I do feel like we've come a long way. We still have a tremendously long way to go. I look at it as a personal humility standpoint for a lot of things. I know that there's a lot of people out there that are better at what I do, and it really doesn't matter who they are, what they look like, or where they live for that, so there's all those factors that come into play. But we do, as an industry, I feel like we have a chance to lead. I don't know if we are, but we do have definite chance. And like Marcin said, we just have to step up to the plate individually and not have those biases and not care, if a female contemporary is kicking our butt in a programming standpoint, because why can't she?
Yeah, and the important thing is also that we have the same tools, we have the same possibilities, we have the same amount of hours during the day to achieve the same or different goals, and why we should treat ourselves differently. But still, I've seen a lot of stories where really it was about competition, which was funny part of it, because I know a lot of better developers than myself, and I'm always admiring them, and I'm always respecting them, and I share that they're better than me. So why not to do this for helping other to become more visible, maybe in different areas? Yeah.
Kevin, that's a perfect segue to the tweet.
Which tweet?
The tweet we were talking about right before we went on air.
I talk about all kinds of tweets. Oh, you're talking about the admiration tweet?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
And it's probably a good way to actually segue to the end of the show. So
yeah. So yeah. So the tweet he's talking about, there is a tweet going around where it's basically tag somebody you admire, somebody you look up to, who you want to be when you grow up. And I tagged Mr. Matt Brailsford from Sheffield area, United Kingdom, which is way far away from where I live. But it's good to, I don't want to say be envious or jealous, but it's good to look at somebody and go, dang, that's what I want to do. That's what I want to be like, because it's good. If you find yourself feeling like you're the smartest guy or gal in the room, change your freaking room, level up, because you need people in the room that you go, holy crap, they are way better than me. You need to be a little scared, because it should make you should feel that fire in your belly to go, you know what? Yeah, I can be like that too. And I don't have to feel so uncomfortable. I started working with a guy in 2013 in Denver, and I used to think, there's no way I'm going to be like this. This guy is so smart. It's offensive how smart this guy is. And now, and this is not a slight on him, but now I look at him and go, you know what? He's definitely better than me, but not so much anymore. And I feel like I've made a little bit of progress on him, and I feel good, because I want to be on top of the mountain too. But when you get on top of a mountain, you need to look around and go, that peak's taller over there. Let's go conquer it. So yeah, tag a friend, tag a buddy, tag somebody you don't even know, and be like, yeah, I want to be like them when I grow up.
That's a very great idea, and I would lie if I will say that I didn't think about it in the past. We had an idea to record a Nambra Coffee episode about our idols, and I say idols, mentors, however we'll name them, but all of us have people which we are admire, which we are respecting and following. And I also had those situations in my life where I was just looking at someone else's journey, and I was jealous or envy, but in the positive way. Also, that's why I read a lot of books, for example, about someone else's life, because I want to learn how they achieved what they achieved, and maybe just grab some advices or follow some steps from their path to adapt it into my own life, and maybe at some point be as good as them, or maybe even better. And if you will share this tweet, I will be more than grateful for seeing some other mentions, and probably it's a great list of people to just follow.
Exactly.
To just follow.
Well, the great thing is well, the weird thing is mine would probably look more like a Follow Friday kind of tweet with a bunch of @mentions in there. I have a lot of cool friends that do a lot of crazy things. And I always say like, oh, I totally want to be that person when I grow up. Like that's a regular phrase for me. And some of that's just life experience, how they're managing their journey. Erica is a great example. Erica travels constantly, yet she still is gainfully employed. And that's just so so envious for me, but it's not envy, it's admiration, because she's kind of having it all, and she's but she's kind of she'll self-admit, she's just kind of making it up as she goes, but seems like she's got a really good plan. So she would definitely be one of my people that I admire, but the list is long and rich for a bunch of different reasons. I think on that note, we should probably go around the horn. And if there's anything, Marcin, you want to leave the listeners with, maybe plug where they can find you online and all that good stuff. And we'll just I'll do my little I want to be you when I grow up thing is my wrap up. And I think, Marcin, it's on to you.
So you gave me a lot of thoughts about this, those idols, and I will definitely fill my my entries on Twitter. And you can find me on Twitter, where I'm trying to be active, and I'm exploring Instagram lately, where I'm sharing my daily stories, my Insta stories, and how developers' life looks like. So if you will search for Zajkowski Marcin, or you will find me. You'll probably find me anywhere. I'm active on Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Facebook. So everywhere where you can find me, ping me, ask me questions, and feel free to just connect and chat about anything.
Great show, guys. We just have one more piece of business, Bob.
Bring the lightning.